Our Stephen D'Souza is tracking this story. He joins me now from New York. Steve, this is thought to be the biggest mass execution for terror offenses in Saudi Arabia since 1980. What can you tell us about them?
There were 47 executions in all, and they took place across the country, many of them by beheading, and the majority were actually Sunni Muslims who were convicted of crimes related to terrorism linked to groups like Al-Qaeda. But the small minority and, as you mentioned off the top, the cleric, the Shia cleric, Sheikh Nimr al-Nimr, the most prominent of those executed today. He was arrested for anti-government protests in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia in 2011 and 2012, and many people thought that the charges against him were more political than terrorism related, and they were hoping that he would receive a royal pardon, but in fact that did not happen, and he was among those executed today. And Saudi Arabia saying that this was all for terrorist-related acts and that anyone convicted of that would face justice and that they would apply justice equally whether the perpetrators be Sunni or Shia.
There's a lot of religious rivalry across the Middle East, and these executions have prompted a lot of anger. Tell us more about that.
Well, Shia-dominated Iran is Saudi Arabia's main rival in the region, and they have condemned the execution today of the cleric and saying that there will be consequences, as well. Iran's leadership posting a tribute to Sheikh Nimr on Twitter as well. In the parts of Saudi Arabia where the protests took place a few years ago, protests again erupting today, calling for the downfall of the Saudi royal family. Similar protests taking place in Bahrain as well. And so a lot of statements of condemnation from Iraq. Leadership there saying that at a time when people are trying to get away from sectarian tension, that countries like Saudi Arabia should not be inflaming it. However, in the U.S., we should look for perhaps a more muted response. The U.S. is a strong supporter of Saudi Arabia, and as one human rights expert told me, they're no strangers to executions themselves. And perhaps another consequence of these executions, terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula have said they will attack and there will be consequences to Saudi Arabia if they execute their members, and that's exactly what's happened. So remains to be seen what happens on that front.
All right, thanks, Steve. The CBC's Stephen D'Souza in New York.